Hello, my name is Ivan Buchanan, and I am the owner of the Buchanan Report. What I have surmised has finally been validated. The VA police are the tip of the spear, if you will, on putting together cases against whistleblowers and anyone else in the VA determined to be a threat. The following interview with former Lieutenant Rob O'Neill will validate this and answer a few of your questions. Based on my background as an investigator regarding corrupt government investigations, which has resulted in arrest and convictions, I feel compelled to investigate this matter and hold accountable, as I have in the past, the people engaging in this conduct, no matter how high up the ladder it goes. I have others to interview, and I am sure the list will grow. This type of investigation can get costly, therefore, if you are interested in supporting me, please go to my website and purchase a t-shirt or a hoodie. You can also just make a donation if you wish. The PayPal button is on my website. I repeat, I cannot fund this myself. To be successful, I need your support. Weekly updates on the investigation will be made via my radio show and YouTube. Thank you.
Date June 6th, 2017. Rob, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, you're aware that this is being taped and it is with your permission?
Yes, sir.
Okay, have you been coached as to what to say, not to say?
No, I have not.
Okay. Would you please state your full name, not your address, and where you worked?
Sure. My name is Robert O'Neill, and my previous employer was Bay Pines VA Healthcare System in St. Petersburg, Florida.
And your position there?
My position there was a police lieutenant. I was a supervisor in charge of patrol operations.
Okay. I'm just going to cut to the chase on this very short interview that we're going to do here. Basically, part of the story that you have to tell is that law enforcement there at Bay Pines has been used as the tip of the spear, if you will, to investigate whistleblowers and anyone else that they potentially deem a threat, to basically shut them down. Is that correct? Is that a true statement?
Yes, that's a correct analogy there. Yes, that's correct, 100%.
Okay. And you were promoted to lieutenant because you were deemed, apparently, by chief of police or other people above you, that you could be managed, if you will, to do certain things that they wanted you to do along these lines, correct?
Yes, I think that's part of the reason I was promoted, as well as capabilities, but that was part of the equation also, I believe. Yes, it was.
Could you tell me, you told me at one time they pulled you into the room, et cetera. Could you explain that situation?
Sure. I was brought in, it was probably early 2010. I was brought in by the police chief, Robert Shogren. The nature of the conversation behind closed doors was some of the whistleblowers that I had supervised on my shift at the time were litigants in a whistleblower EEO complaint. And I think I supervised maybe 4 to 5 of them on my shift at the time, these litigants. And I was brought in basically to ask if I could handle these people. When I say handle, it means they meant to be, it was probably a code word for, are you going to play on our side of the fence here? And I asked, well, what do you mean by handle? Could you explain that to me? And he says, well, we do periodic reviews of certain individuals, maybe twice a year. And they wanted to know if I would do an investigation or do some sort of fact findings on some people they deemed as perceived enemies, as I believe. And when I mean perceived enemies, these are folks that had filed EEO complaints or at one point whistleblowers or had EEO complaints. And my understanding was they would basically say to me, present to me, well, we've ourselves have reviewed certain cases or individuals' leave time or leave usage, and we feel that they have been abusing, the system, their leave usage. So my understanding was I was ordered to conduct a fact finding or some sort of investigation, to go in to monitor their leave usage and talk with HR and come up with a disciplinary action if it was appropriate. To my knowledge, if it was appropriate. And oftentimes I would be ordered to do these things, such as these fact findings or some type of administrative investigation on somebody. And I would often at times come up with through HR and say, well, a lot of these things they're not appropriate enough for any type of disciplinary action. And I would go back and tell them, the management, upper management, or the police chief, and say, listen, HR told me that there was not enough meat and potatoes there to pretty much conduct any disciplinary action. That I was to take a lower course of action, which would be a letter of counseling or some type of action like that along those lines, very, very minute order of discipline, which is the lowest level. We have a perceived, level of discipline, which is called progressive discipline, which is, starts from a letter of counseling up into removal. And a lot of times I was asked to go after these folks through fact-finding investigations. And I would often go back and tell them it doesn't meet the criteria for disciplinary action or suspension, things like that. And they would come back to me and they would get upset with me and say, we hired you for a reason to do these things. Certain conversations I would have off the record with these folks in the hallway with management, and they would get upset with me through the years.
Okay, I want to define fact-finding. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, fact-finding is a term used for basically investigating an individual, specifically not for disciplinary reasons or reasons to fire someone, but, find out where they need, further direction, help, if you will, to be productive in their job. Did I state that about right there?
Yeah, you're correct there. We've adopted in the VA system, which is called a fact finding. It goes parallel with the administrative investigation, which is the official investigation into employees' conduct or behavior. But basically, a fact finding is a person which the fact finders who's supposed to be impartially searching for the facts and articulates the subject or situation. If you're appointed to do the official investigation, they're asking for your purpose is to gain insight into the situation, determine a course of action required. Also, it's basically non-disciplinary. It's for correction only.
Okay, so then is it a safe statement for me to make that they would start the investigation under the, quote, fact-finding, but that was just a guise, that was used as a guise, if you will, to really get down to what they wanted, and that was to, basically investigate them for reasons of termination, if you will. Is that a correct statement?
Correct. Absolutely. They would have a preconceived notion that they wanted somebody disciplined or they wanted somebody removed, and this would be the foundation. Like fact-finding would be the foundation where they would go after somebody. Like I said, they're for non-disciplinary action, for corrective action only. And basically what I need to tell you also is very important as well. The fact-finder who's delegated to doing these investigations cannot be an interested party, which means they are not supposed to have your immediate supervisor doing them as well as I was asked to do, someone's immediate supervisor. The other thing, too, is there's no reporting system in these fact findings. There's no tracking methods. Fact findings tend to be opinion papers, is what I determined over the years. The fact finders are employee supervisors, which are often biased. These investigations come up biased. What you should have is an uninterested party that would conduct these fact findings. They will come in from another different service or somewhere else that would do these things. In this instant here, you have your own police department investigating themselves, is what you have.
Okay. So during this fact-finding investigation, in your particular situation, you didn't come up with the information that they wanted so that they could take the action that they wanted to take against an individual, i.e. getting rid of them, if you will. And so you are actually either directly or indirectly asked to seek whatever methods available to obtain that information, i.e. using um, you know, avenues, electronics, if you will, that should only be used if an active investigation is ongoing, like an actual case number assigned, a real investigation happening, etc. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, that's correct.
And so they expected that and you refused to do that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now you told me before in a prior conversation that you were asked about, you know, viewing some video that was out there, and so you were either directed to, or you thought, well, okay, I'll make a telephone call. You had to call IT. What would you describe that incident, if you would, please?
Sure. Yeah, I was a detective at one time, about 4 or 5 years ago. I was a detective down there at Bay Pines, and I was a supervisor of one of the other sergeants at the time, and he was a litigant in a EEO lawsuit. And I was in the office one day. The police chief walked in and asked me behind closed doors, and asked me to pull this individual's computer usage through his login account. And that means entailing, we'll go over to IT, contacting them, the IT department, information technology, and acquiring his monitored or his computer usage through a certain dates, through a certain time period. And I said, okay, well, let me find out and I'll get back to you. That was the end of that conversation. So a few days later, I contacted IT department at Bay Pines. And I said, look, here's what I'm designated to do by the police chief. He wants me to do this, this, and this. Find somebody's usage through a certain period of dates. So her reaction to me was kind of, she was kind of taken aback.
Wait a minute. When you say her, if you don't want to mention her name, that's fine. But what department is she in?
When I say her, she was the chief of the IT department. That was the head. That was the boss of the whole IT department. I spoke with her. I don't recall her name right now, but when I spoke to her on the phone, she kind of got taken aback by my request. And what I'm saying is, she was kind of started yelling at me about this, and she said, "There's no way I can produce that for you, and we're not allowed to do that. You have there's nothing that involves director approval." That you're going into somebody's user access? Is there something criminal that you're looking for? I said, no. And I just want to know administratively what this individual's access was. I was ordered to find out his access, to find out what websites he's been into, what times of the day. They were making an allegation against this individual for pretty much a loafing on the job. And so she told me, no, by no means will you get that information. We cannot give that to you. You know, you don't have no case number. There's nothing criminal here. You know, was this individual looking at porn? You know, that's the kind of things that they were asking. And I said, no, this is more, you know, she said to me, this is more like a fishing expedition, and you will not get that information. And that was pretty much the end of that phone call right there. So I went back to the police chief and told him I cannot get this information for you. You know, is there something else you want me to do? And pretty much it was, we'll look at his, you know, see what he's doing during the day, and, you know, if there's something there, write him up. And that was what I was ordered to do.
So you were directed to find something on them, write them up.
Correct.
It sounds like it was already predetermined on what they wanted to do with this individual.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And see, like I said, she was right. It was a fishing expedition. She was correct, you know, in her assumption. And I feel, you know, I was ordered to go in there and find something on somebody that really, there was nothing really there. There was, you know, I'm trying to pull something out of an investigation that I cannot find. There's nothing there. You know, and how do you go back to someone and say, listen, there's nothing there, and they're not satisfied with that? And that's one of the biggest problems in this. You can't find nothing because there's really nothing there on some of these things. Okay,
so bottom line, I want to ask the question again. You were repeatedly asked by your higher ups, the chief of police, and whoever in between there, to conduct these type of investigations under the fact-finding basis, which is basically, you know, headhunt, for lack of better words, on these people that are either whistleblowers or deemed to be a potential whistleblower problem in the future, et cetera, for purposes of getting rid of them. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. And, you know, the one thing to point out about this is, of all these things I was asked to do, was always based on going after somebody that was a litigant in some sort of EEO complaint or lawsuit or things along those lines. It was never no one else that was not involved. There was always somebody that was involved, these like whistleblowers That's who I was asked to go after, these types of folks.
So they're giving you names of people to target and go make a case on.
That's correct.
And utilize means, if you can, that you're not supposed to use because it would be illegal either criminally or civilly.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, what it is, basically, if wrongdoing is discovered in any sort of investigation administratively, then what you do is you're supposed to, stop right there and, take corrective action on those things. And what they do now is blur the lines between what you have as a fact-finding and some sort of administrative inquiry, which is the official way. So they sort of blurred the lines between both of these two types of, investigations.
Right.
And a lot of times they pre-draw a conclusion in any fact-finding or administrative investigation before it even starts.
Did you keep track of and make notes as to the people that you were directed to do this on?
Yeah. Yes, on several of these investigations, yes, I do have names and notes. I did keep, my notebook throughout my career, yes.
Okay. Are there other officers, either current officers with Bay Pines or ex-officers in Bay Pines that, can say the same thing that you're saying, that they were directed to do these type of investigations, or the target of an investigation like this? Do you know of other people like that?
Yes, most of these will be the targets themselves that will say, yes, that what he's saying is pretty much accurate, 100%.
So the answer to my question is yes, you know of other people.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you would surmise that there are other people in your same situation as other people that may be the target in various other VA facilities. That's correct. That would be a summation on your part?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. This concludes this interview. Today's date, June 6, 2017, 10:25 Pacific Coast Time. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Date, June 6,